Flashes of hulls on calm water. No collisions. No shouts across the radio. Just pattern, ships, aircraft, and crews moving like they've done this 100 times before. That's Sama-Sama 2025, the annual U.S. Philippine naval exercise that no longer feels like a drill. It feels seasoned, deliberate, seamless, and confident. What used to be chaos is turning into routine. And routine, out here, is power. Only a year ago, the region was anything but calm. Chinese Coast Guard cutters ramming Filipino boats near 2nd Thomas Shoal, water cannon blasts caught on camera, U.S. statements of grave concern. That was the South China Sea's daily rhythm. Provocation and protest on loop. Then came Freedom Edge 2025, the trilateral U.S. Japan, South Korea drill that flexed air-sea coordination further north. Now the focus shifts south and west, closer to Manila's own front yard. Sama-Sama, Tagalog for together. This year, the name finally fits. Before we dive in, hit like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a deep dive from Naval Brief. The 2025 edition is the biggest yet. US, Philippines, Japan, Australia, Canada, France, and the UK all sent ships, aircraft, and staff. What began as bilateral familiarization now looks like a coalition rehearsal. Officially, it's about interoperability and maritime domain awareness. Unofficially, it's about making sure that the next time Beijing blocks a Philippine resupply run, the response doesn't need a phone call. It's already drilled in. Crews drilled boarding procedures, anti-submarine tracking, and air defense coordination. Japanese P-1S and US P-8S flew shared reconnaissance tracks. Command centers practiced data linking in real time. No lag, no guesswork. It's not flashy, but it's serious work. The kind that turns headlines into deterrence. For decades, the South China Sea was a cycle of incident statement calm repeat, each side testing the other's nerves. But Sama-Sama 2025 shows a new pattern forming. Collective, predictable, repeatable. Every time these ships sail together, the map gets a little harder to redraw. The US calls it deterrence through normalization. China calls it provocation through coalition. And the Philippines, sandwiched between superpowers, calls it partnership in defense. Manila's message is simple. If you want to push us, you'll have to push everyone standing next to us. Let's talk tactics without the jargon. Imagine a grid, patrol lanes, surveillance flights, radar coverage overlapping like shingles on a roof. Each exercise locks another tile into place. Soon, there's no blind spot left for mischief. That's Sama-Sama's quiet genius. It doesn't shout deterrence, it builds it. And it's doing so without firing a shot. Beijing understands this perfectly. That's why, whenever these drills happen, China mirrors them with its own counter-exercises. Same water, same week, different flag. It's less a confrontation than a synchronized display of message management. Across the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, reactions split along familiar lines. Vietnam quietly nods approval. Indonesia issues a polite shrug. Malaysia reminds everyone of its independent stance. Meanwhile, small states like Brunei and Singapore appreciate the stability, even if they don't say it aloud. To them, Sama-Sama isn't saber-rattling, it's insurance. Every foreign frigate that shows up buys Manila another inch of breathing room. Each visit also cements trust. Not the ceremonial kind, but the practical one built from shared meals, deck tours, and long watches under the same storm front. When a Filipino officer can call a Japanese frigate directly, or when an Australian pilot can refuel from a US tanker mid-flight without a glitch, that's not politics, that's capacity. The quiet value of these drills is predictability. Everyone learns how the others move, communicate, and react. That familiarity means that when something real happens, a grounded ship, an intercept gone wrong, the response is faster, calmer, less dangerous. These habits don't just deter conflict. They teach control in the middle of chaos. And for Washington, it's reassurance, proof that allies can coordinate below the level of crisis. It's also a subtle reminder to Beijing and Moscow. America's partnerships are habits now, not headlines. The symbolism is easy to miss. A few years back, every joint drill was treated as a signal, a pointed message. Now it's simply scheduled. That's evolution. You can't protest what becomes normal. The goal isn't confrontation, it's conditioning. Each routine patrol trains everyone, from deckhands to diplomats, to treat cooperation as the baseline. The result? The sea feels less like a disputed zone and more like a managed neighborhood. Loud, messy, but governed by habits stronger than tempers. Manila loves those habits. Every photo op, a U.S. destroyer sailing in step with a Philippine corvette, an Australian helicopter lifting off a Japanese deck, plays beautifully in local news. It signals strength without defiance. And domestically, that matters. For China, the same images do the opposite. State media frames them as encirclement. Commentators warn of external manipulation. But in practice, Beijing adjusts its patrol routes and watches carefully. Because even predictable presence complicates unilateral plans. Out on the water, crews aren't thinking geopolitics. They're thinking fuel lines, radar calibration, and storm bands. Joint drills teach what comms actually sound like when 6 languages share a radio. They teach how to trust the other ship's navigation lights when visibility's down to spray. That's not symbolism, that's survival. And it's not theoretical. Every year, someone in this drill miscalculates. A cutter bumps too close, a pilot pushes fuel limits. The sea doesn't care who's right. That's why repetition matters. Each cycle sharpens timing, refines trust, and turns cooperation from a press release into instinct. Exactly what the region needs when pressure spikes. Sama-Sama's routine makes sure fewer mistakes turn into flashpoints. While the drills ran near Luzon, China conducted its own exercises farther west, around the Paracels, a familiar tit-for-tat rhythm. The U.S. and its partners didn't talk back. They just moved ships. That's the new language of deterrence, consistency. Call it strategy by rhythm. Steady, predictable, effective. It might not trend on social media, but it lands where it counts. Planning tables in Beijing. The unspoken tension of Sama-Sama is pressure, not explosive, just constant. Every new drill, every shared data link, every joint photo raises the operational bar. If China wants to test boundaries now, it's testing against a network, not a nation. That's why officials in Beijing call this military mini-NATO behavior. And that's why Washington smiles and says, it's just training. Both are right. You've seen this sea before. Different month, same message. But something's changed. The tempo feels steadier. The standoffs are still there, but they're buffered by routine. This isn't escalation, it's evolution. The region is learning that discipline can be deterrence. And repetition, the boring kind, can keep the peace better than speeches. So where does this rhythm lead? Probably right back here, the next time the ships line up in formation and someone calls it provocative. Until then, it's just routine. But routine shapes reality. The point isn't to stop the day from coming. It's to be ready when it does. Anchored, this is Naval Brief. If you're all hands on deck with maritime conflict, naval power, and defense analysis, subscribe and stay mission ready for the next briefing.